This previously uploaded video now includes our 2025 winter testing. If this is your first time watching, welcome and please enjoy. If you're returning for our winter test results, you can use the chapters feature to jump straight to that section right after our road, wet, and dry results summary.
We have the Camry with us, and you know exactly what that means. We're getting ready for another touring tire test. And the list of touring tires that we've tested keeps getting longer and longer. And this time around, we're going to add an additional 11 tires to that higher list. And we have a good mix. 7 of these are Three Peak Mountain Snowflake branded, and 4 of them aren't.
And that's the way the touring market's been headed lately. I feel like every other week we have a new all-weather touring tire. And in fact, of the new 4 tires in this test, each one of them is an all-weather tire.
The 4 new tires in our test are the Hankook WeatherFlex GT, which is the follow-up to the company's very popular Kinergy 4S2. Kumho has impressed our team with their latest generation tires, and they have high expectations for the Solis 4S HA32's year-round traction, so we're excited to see how it performs. The Nokian and Compass AW02's predecessor was very good in the snow, but it left us wanting more in terms of wet traction, so we look forward to finding out if the company has made improvements there. Radar tires are brand new to Tire Rack, and the Dymax All-Weather is the first of their products we're testing, so there's a lot of pressure to set the tone for the brand. The comparison tires we've included are the BF Goodrich Advantage Control and Cooper Endeavor, which are dependable products that have been on the market for a few years. The Falcon Acclimate is a Three Peak Mountain Snowflake branded tire that was introduced in 2023, and the Firestone Weather Grip has proven to be a strong benchmark in the snow. Sumitomo's HTR Enhance LX2 was last tested in 2020, so it will be good to see how it compares to the newer competition. The Toyo Celsius 2 was launched in 2023, and the Yokohama Avid Ascend GT is the longest running tire in the test. It was launched in 2018 and has proven itself through multiple Tire Rack tests.
The all-weather tires in this test may make that unspoken promise of enhanced wintertime traction, and we'll definitely put that promise to the test later in the year to see if they deliver on their promise. But right now, their primary goal, the thing that we expect of them, is to be good touring tires, not just some, detuned winter tire.
Exactly, and just like we expect from the all-season tires, they have to be good in the wet. They have to have decent dry and emergency avoidance capabilities. But above all else, arguably, they have to be nice on the road. That's something people experience every single day, and that's where our testing begins.
BF Goodrich Advantage Control. It's a little softer than some of the other tires in the test.
It's cushioned, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So for a touring tire, it absorbs the big bumps, which is nice. The slight downfall to that is, there's a little bit of, kind of continued motion. It's a little, let's call it maybe a touch jiggly. That might be over exaggerating a hair, but you can feel that it doesn't stop. The steering, it feels natural. It feels like a touring tire. It's maybe just a tiny bit slow to respond.
Well, like you said, I wanted a little more gain. I wanted a little more firmness once the tire's loaded up. I wanted a little more going on.
What do you think about the noise?
It's good. On this smoother surface, there is a little bit of cyclical kind of pattern noise to it. It's not bad, but it's there. It's nothing the radio couldn't overpower, certainly.
Or charming conversation with your co-driver.
That's deafening. So yeah, absolutely.
Here we are on the Cooper Endeavor, and I guess we should start with ride. It's composed, it's, controlled, maybe a little bit taut, but it's really,
on the firmer side.
There it is, yes, thank you. That's what I was struggling for. I appreciate that.
Yeah, noise-wise, it's decent. It's decently good, in fact. If there is a little bit of coarseness, kind of like this chip and seal we're on right now, or the cross-cut concrete, it does develop kind of that medium-pitched kind of hum, a little bit of a harmonic cyclical tone as well. It's not bad, but it actually does a pretty good job quieting down on the smoother surfaces, on the smoother asphalt. Yeah, especially the brand new stuff like right here. Handling is probably its worst trait of the 3 for our road ride. It's not bad. No. It's just it's the thing that's holding it back a little bit.
Yeah, I believe both of our notes use the word wonky, which is working its way into our test videos. It's making a regular appearance.
Yeah. It doesn't
feel natural. It doesn't, I don't know if there's, some kind of weird ramp up or just gain or, I couldn't quite put my finger on it.
It's because it's wonky.
It it just doesn't feel intuitive and natural to me. Falcon Acclimate. It's nice and rounded over the big individual bumps. I like that.
Which customers will notice. They'll say, hey, this is comfortable.
For sure.
It is,
Yes. Over the multiple repetitive impacts, I did notice a little bit of jitteriness, a little bit of, continued residual motion, which if you don't drive over that kind of surface, it won't be a problem. But if you do, it's just something to, something to think about. All right, so let's talk about noise. And this one, I'm comfortable starting. This one.
Strong opinions.
Right? No, not really. But I mean, kind of. I notice a bit of like medium volume, high-ish pitched background noise, but it doesn't just stay in the background. It kind of comes to the forefront.
You're really sensitive to that.
Higher pitched, right? What do you think about the noise?
The noise on the Falcon was kind of at its low point in its road ride. Again, it wasn't bad. It was still pretty good. But like you said, there are some tones on certain types of surface. There is that kind of medium, kind of pitchy ring to it at times.
The steering though is actually a high point for it. It's pretty nice. I mean, it's not performance tire amazing, but it's
for a touring tire on a Camry. Right? We were both impressed. It's nice.
Ben, what did you think about the Firestone Weather Grip?
I liked that it did a very good job, I think, of rounding over the sharp impacts. It's taking the peak off of the impact, which I do appreciate.
Yep. Here we are on a just very typical, kind of coarse-ish asphalt road, tar strips. What are your thoughts on noise?
Good for an all-weather touring tire.
Okay.
It's not as bad as necessarily I would have expected or from what we've had in the past on this platform.
Right.
It's doing a pretty decent job, especially considering its very all-weather, winter-focused capabilities. Because let's face it, this tire is focused for winter performance.
Indexes over to the winter side of the equation, and part of that also is all of the siping, the chopped up tread blocks that it has, and that impacts the steering, right? It's something that we both noticed when we were driving. It's a little bit slow to respond. It feels like you add some input and then it winds up a little bit and then it responds. Hankook WeatherFlex GT. All right, what do you think?
The ride on the Hankook is pretty good. It's a little taut compared to some of the other tires we've driven. It's a little taut. It's a little firm.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and it's not bad. It's not excessive. It's just there's a mid-range here, and it's on the firmer end of the range from what we've seen. The WeatherFlex GT also is an all-weather tire, like many of the tires in the test, and sometimes that can result in more tonal variety.
It's kind of speed dependent. At lower speeds, it's more apparent. At higher speeds, I don't know if it's a pattern thing, a pitch thing, but it seems to blend together and maybe even get quieter.
I like the steering on it. It felt natural. It felt about right for a touring tire.
It was fine. I think I said it was kind of unremarkable. It did the job for me.
Kumho Solus 4S HA32.
The ride's a little firm. On this slightly broken asphalt, you can feel everything. I called it transparent. Big bumps are big, medium bumps are medium, and small are just always felt.
Okay. Now, noise here on this on-ramp, it rolls over a little bit on its shoulder. At low speeds, we both commented on, you hear that pattern noise, you hear the cyclical. I called it a whir. The good news is though, with more speed or with a lot of surface texture, it kind of all blends together and it sort of masks that sound a little bit and just turns into more of a broad general tone.
It's fine at the higher speeds, which is kind of a cool thing.
So onto the high note though for this tire, steering. You're driving, you talk about steering. It'll be nice.
So far, some of the best in the test.
Yes.
We were both very happy.
You almost said impressed, and then you paused and said, "No, probably not impressed." But very, very happy.
It felt natural, intuitive.
I called it cheerful. It was pleasant and cheerful.
Sprightly.
I said it wasn't trying to be a performance tire, but it just nice and happy to do what I was asking it to do. Nokian Encompass AW02.
I am really impressed.
Right? Yes.
Bumps are comfortable. That was a big bump, and that was more comfortable than probably any other tire so far.
At the very least, yeah.
Steering is nice
right?
too.
Yes, I liked the steering a
Yeah.
lot. It was one of the top 2 tires in the test
Yeah.
for me for steering.
It's got a little ramp up and response. You're right on center at slow speeds and at high speeds. Tell me about noise.
Noise was good too.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only kind of minor complaint that I had, low speeds, there's a little tiny bit of interaction, and I noticed that like tar strips and cat's eyes had a little bit of a ring to them. Other than that,
Like the impact ring, the bond
impact,
ring. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I get behind that.
Just a little bit. But other than that, you know, and I'm looking for
finding-
things
yeah.
to say
Right.
about it because it was unremarkable in a good way.
Yeah.
Radar Dymax All Weather. I think the ride is on point, honestly. That's verbatim from my notes. I actually used the term on point in my
Does that
notes.
mean it's good?
It is. It's good. It does a nice job. It feels like a proper touring tire.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Where we don't 1000% agree is on noise. We had a little bit of a disparity between our scores. Nothing major.
Yeah.
But you know, I noticed some, especially when it was interacting with crosscut concrete, coarse asphalt. You know, just noticed some tones that were not pleasing to my ear.
Tones or volume?
Tones.
That's my thing. The volume was at a very nice level to where, like on this surface, it's canceling out a lot of those tones.
Sure. Steering as well. You know, I found that took a little bit more input before it started responding. It felt like some of the other all-weather tires that were in the test to me.
Right.
And then it
so the
wasn't,
initial
you know,
input was a little lethargic. Yeah. What I really appreciated was how it responded once it was loaded.
Sure.
In fact, I wasn't even thinking about steering, and we took that kind of tight right-hander, and it actually jumped out like, oh, that felt really nice. Like I wasn't even like consciously evaluating that. So once it's loaded, it does respond well.
Sure. Sumitomo HTR Enhance LX2. First thing that I noticed is, man, the volume is turned up just a little bit compared to most tires in this test, over all surfaces too. All right,
What's the second thing you noticed?
I noticed that high-speed impacts hit pretty hard.
Yeah. Kind of a disappointment. I guess I would like a good touring tire to really kind of soak those things
Right,
up.
to isolate the driver from, you know, what's going on down there at the road. Yeah, or
Right,
insulate.
right.
Insulate was the word I meant.
Isolate,
actually.
insulate. I'll take either at this point.
Insulate the driver.
Because right now it's neither.
Yeah, and then steering. I like the steering. It was
weird.
I know, you're weird. It's fine. It felt, you know, not overly eager, not overly lazy. It matched my input speed. It matched my desire for a touring tire in terms of steering.
I don't know what tire you were driving. I described it as
tire.
pudding-y. It was never talking to me. We were never partnered. It was just, I'm inputting wheel and it's doing something on its own. I don't know.
This is me just ignoring you.
It
Putting on my
wasn't
happy
terrible.
face and
It wasn't
ignoring you.
terrible.
Thank you. I'll take it wasn't terrible.
Is it the best in the test?
No.
Of course not.
I didn't say it was the best in the test. I said I liked it. I enjoyed it. Toyo Celsius 2.
A bit firm over most impacts. It does a decent job kind of rounding off the tip.
Okay.
I think we've said that about a few tires this test so far.
Which is good for a test full of touring tires,
Yep,
right? Yeah.
admirable. But there's still more up and down than a lot of tires in this test. It's good, it's fine. Yeah, for the Toyo, noise, I wasn't 100% sure if this is a speed related variable or if this is a surface
take, folks. Here it comes.
coarseness
Go
variable. But with significant coarseness, it seemed to interact with that a little bit more. The volume would increase a little bit more. Yeah. Although there were some slower speed course sections with a very similar crosscut concrete, which wasn't too bad. It kind of goes back and forth of being a little too loud and from being fine. So kind of a 7. It was fine. It was good.
Guess what the steering is? Kind of a 7.
Kind of a 7.
Yeah. It feels maybe a little over boosted, a little over eager. You know, not bad, but to the point where I would say it doesn't feel natural or intuitive in the way it reacts to my inputs. Yokohama Avitus NGT. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, okay. I know you were very eager to talk about the ride. So look at this, big bumps, small repetitive bumps, then another big bump coming up.
This is the most performance-y touring tire that we've tested today.
And I don't disagree with that,
Perfect.
believe it or not.
How could you?
I said it's very nicely composed,
Yeah.
controlled very well,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's a little bit firm. It feels like it could be mistaken for a UHPL season
It
tire.
absolutely could.
What about noise?
On the smoother surfaces, it kind of had some pattern noises that were trying to blend in but could never quite do it. Overall, it was fine. But,
Right?
yeah.
And similarly, I didn't have a whole lot to say about the steering either. It responded appropriate.
It steered.
It was category appropriate, which we haven't said that yet this year, but I'm bringing it back.
After our on-road testing, it was time to evaluate each tire's performance in wet conditions. Around our skid pad, their ultimate lateral grip was tested, and we found a range of results within 1/10 of a G. Two of the all-new all-weather releases, the Kumo Solus 4S HA32 and Hankook WeatherFlex GT, took the top spots, with 0.74 and 0.72 Gs respectively, and the venerable Yokohama Avid Ascend GT was right there on their heels at 0.71. A group led by the Weather Grip delivered lateral traction at or around 0.7 Gs. However, beyond that, we started to feel some palpable differences from the last four contenders: the Acclimate, Dymax All Weather, Endeavor, and HTR Enhanced LX2, which seemed to struggle a bit more at maintaining their line and speed. Once on the flooded VDA, the standing water lateral traction helped us determine how each tire may cope with deeper water where hydroplaning becomes a factor. The Nokian Encompass AW02 and Solus 4S HA32 had little trouble dealing with the added depth, and the Avid Ascend GT once again refused to give up ground to the fresh all-weather options. With the rest of the group between 0.65 and 0.62 Gs, it goes to show how all-season touring tires are typically capable of delivering decent traction in deeper water, especially at full tread depth. Emergency braking from 60 to 0 started to show some more differentiation. The BF Goodrich Advantage Control delivered a test-leading 147-foot stopping distance, a sizable lead to a comfortable group stopping between 152 feet and 154 feet, rounded out by the new Dymax All Weather. Two of the other new all-weather tires, the Solus 4S HA32 and WeatherFlex GT, followed behind at a convenient 158 feet. Past the 160-foot mark, the Avid Ascend GT was flanked by its all-weather competition, with the Toyo Celsius 2 and Firestone Weather Grip rounding out the test group a sizable step back.
Our wet track testing allows us to determine each tire's dynamic traction in addition to its ability to combine inputs for simulated emergency avoidance maneuvers. While ultimate lap times aren't part of the mission statement for Grand Touring all-season tires, differences in lap times are indicative of tires' differing abilities in everything from the daily drive to real-life emergency situations. The Solus 4S HA32 and Avid Ascend GT were narrowly separated and were the only two tires in the test to break the 34-second barrier. From there, the WeatherFlex GT was about 0.3 of a second back on the last step of the podium. A considerable group of 5 tires were separated by the next half second, with the Weather Grip sitting on the borderline of what we would consider a good performance. The Dymax All Weather and the Endeavor both put forth acceptable lap times in the low 35-second range, and the HTR Enhanced LX2 trailed the group at 35.55 seconds.
Moving away from objective lap times, our subjective evaluation found the Solus 4S HA32 and Yokohama Avid Ascend GT once again at the top of the charts, though this time they were split by the Encompass AW02, which provided agreeable driving characteristics that transcended its mid-pack objective performance.
All right, Kumo Solus 4S HA32. That's a mouthful, but at least it's good out here on the wet track.
Isn't it?
It's nice. I actually tucked in too much to the skid pad because it's got more grip than I kind of expected was coming.
Right?
It's nice.
And it behaves the way you want it to. It's bright and responsive on the front end, combined with that traction means that it kind of dances through the slalom.
Yeah.
You can actually do a little bit of lift to get it to tuck.
It's
because
actually fun out
right?
here, yeah.
I know. And who would have thought that was possible in the Camry? But
I'm dancing.
here you are dancing. Do it again. Dance. Never mind. Yokohama Avid Ascend GT.
So the Yokohama Avid Ascend GT was one of our wet benchmarks that we had years ago at this point, I guess.
Right, yeah, it's not a new tire by any means.
But you know what? It's still kind of holding its own out here against
More than
these.
just kind of holding its own. It is
very
holding
good.
its own, right?
Heck yeah. You're right. I'm sorry, Yokohama. You're right.
Yeah, this old war horse is still getting it done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it feels balanced, predictable.
Here's the Nokian Encompass AW02. Traction is good, maybe not as good as the best in the test, but still strong,
It's
right?
pretty darn close.
It is pretty darn close,
Yeah.
yes. It is absolutely up there. The steering is bright and lively. It feels nice.
still feels safe
Right.
when you do get a little bit of that rear end engagement. It's useful and it's predictable.
Yeah, it's not crazy tail happy like it's gonna bite you and you're working hard to keep the car pointed in the right direction. No. It's none of that. It's just, it's good.
The WeatherFlex GT delivered satisfying traction and agreeable dynamic behavior that was just behind the Yokohama in our evaluation. Similarly, the Advantage Control had no standout bad habits. The Dymax All-Weather and Weather Grip both did the best they could with their relatively limited traction, and they both required our drivers to take a step back and drive in a less rushed, more relaxed fashion. Though with this mindset, they were competent performers. The final 4 tires in the evaluation got to where they ended up in different ways. The Acclimate and Endeavor were mildly traction limited, and neither communicated their limits very well, resulting in repeated steps over the line and a frustrating understeer. The Celsius 2 was very capable objectively, and it quietly went about its business in a satisfying way, with its only sin being that it didn't engage or deliver any real driving enjoyment. The HTR Enhance LX2, on the other hand, was relatively enjoyable to drive because it communicated exactly where its limits were. Unfortunately, those limits were also the lowest in the test, which proved to be too much of a hurdle to overcome with satisfying driving dynamics.
This is the Falcon Acclimate. Whoa, pushing a little bit. Look at that.
Yep, that's the story right there.
Yep, it pushes. The steering feels eager. It does a pretty good job. It has pretty good traction. But the issue is it doesn't tell you where the limit is. So you find yourself like thinking, oh yeah, this is doing fine, it's doing great, and then it pushes. It pushes.
Sumitomo HDR Enhanced LX2. It's fine, it's okay, it's pretty balanced in its traction delivery.
Yep.
Traction's just a little bit lower.
Low traction, but actually kind of enjoyable to drive because it's
feels
round
good.
and balanced, and it feels nice, but just doesn't really have all the grip of, well, any other tire in the test.
Emergency braking from 60 to 0 in the dry was led by the Sumitomo HDR Enhance LX2 at 126 feet. A couple feet back, the Radar Dymax All-Weather also delivered strong longitudinal grip. The majority of the group fell between 130 and 140 feet to bring the test vehicle to a stop from 60 miles per hour, which is respectable for all-season touring products. Interestingly, the all-weather options are intermixed in the braking results, which reinforces the notion that customers don't necessarily have to choose between enhanced winter grip and warm season performance. One exception to that is the Firestone Weather Grip, which once again rounded out the group with significantly longer braking distances.
Our emergency lane change maneuver tests each tire's ability to avoid a simulated obstacle in the road and safely return to the original lane of travel. It's performed at 45 miles an hour, and each tire is evaluated on its ability to pass the test in addition to its behavior and subjective characteristics. The Solus 4S HA32 utilized its bright and eager steering response, plus poised, stable handling characteristics to pass the ELC with ease every time.
All right, out here doing lane change in the Kumo Solus 4S HA32. All right.
45 and... little chatter there, which is?
Yeah, it defaults to safe, predictable understeer. But it's good.
It is, right? It's so eager and alert and responsive, and the front end just makes it go like this, the thing I'm doing with my hand.
Pointy, consistent. Yeah, if you do come in too hot, you're not going to end up backwards. You're just going to kind of understeer a little bit until the front end comes back to you.
And then continue to make the pass the maneuver. Yeah,
that's what you want.
And the Celsius 2 and Avid Ascend GT also had no issues completing our maneuver.
Toyo Celsius 2, it just passes every time. It just does it. No fanfare, no big deal. Look at that. Just like that.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, and we can do that over and over and over again, every time. Yokohama Avid Ascend GT. There we go. There we go.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. There are a lot of all-weather tires in this test, and some of them, many of them, feel a little schmooshier, you know? And so getting back into kind of an old-school all-season product, it feels nice.
It handles it well.
The Advantage Control and the Endeavor were two sides of the same coin, with the Advantage Control understeering to success, and the Endeavor displaying a more neutral behavior as it navigated the cones. The Acclimate also adopted a slightly tail-out behavior, and it was the first tire with a single, almost unexplainable fail.
Falcon Acclimate. And oh no, emergency! And feels eager. The rear end wants to engage.
Yep.
We made it this time, but one of your drivers may have had one fail on the
Just a
acclimate.
single miss.
Just a single miss, so 7 for 8.
The Encompass AW02 managed to pass every time, but its attributes may not be favorable in a real, unexpected emergency situation. The WeatherFlex GT didn't feel as stable or confident as the stronger competitors, but it managed to succeed on every attempt. The Dymax All-Weather was somewhat unnerving for our drivers, requiring a change in driving style to ensure the vehicle passed through the gate successfully.
All right, the Radar Dymax All-Weather. Well, almost made it.
Almost.
Which was common for our testing as well, right?
Right. Normally when we do this, we let the tires do what they're going to do so we can learn their behavior.
Right.
But both of us, without talking to one another about it, after the first run, we started adding our input to go back the other way before we made it through the first gate, because we just instinctively knew that if we didn't do that,
this thing's about to bite my head off.
bad things were going to happen.
The HTR Enhance LX2 failed more times than it passed, and the Weather Grip didn't succeed in a single attempt.
Firestone Weather Grip, emergency lane change, up to 45, and
Here we go.
there's grass over
You
there.
didn't make it. Understeer City, mush.
Doesn't want to respond and come back the other direction. By the time it does respond to what you're asking the front end to do, then the rear end is just so overwhelmed that it gets all sideways and sloppy. And
You know, this test was a good mix of new and existing products and all-season and all-weather touring tires. And it's really nice to see two of those brand new all-weather tires in the top 2 spots.
Yeah, and like we said before, that seems to be the way the touring market's heading. And it's nice to see these all-weather tires competing against all-season benchmarks. And that is meaningful progress, not just change for the sake of change.
Since these are touring tires, ride quality and noise comfort on the road are at or near the top of the priority list. And in this test, the Encompass AW02, Dymax All-Weather, and Advantage Control were at the top. When looking at how the best here stack up in our ever-growing overall list, they're in the upper half of the results, behind a group that mostly consists of premium touring tires. If wet traction is high on your priority list, the Solus 4S H832, Encompass AW02, and Avid Ascend GT delivered the strongest performance in this test, and they're about a half point back from the top contenders in the overall charts. And looking at the combined overall rating for this test, the Nokian Encompass AW02 and Kumho Solus 4S H832 were our leaders, with the venerable Yokohama Avid Ascend GT a minuscule step back. The leaders here were mid to upper mid pack in the total rankings for the category as a whole. For drivers who experience the worst conditions winter has to offer, how their tires perform on the ice and in the snow can make all the difference. And we find there are huge differences in traction levels between tires, even from the same performance category. That means the only way to know which tires will get you to where you're going with confidence, and which may leave you at the mercy of the elements, is through testing.
So that's exactly what we do. We take every non-summer tire from our normal test season and we retest them on the ice at a local hockey rink and in the snow at a dedicated winter testing facility in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. We compare acceleration and braking traction in addition to lateral grip, and we find out how each tire behaves when it's pushed up to and well beyond its limits.
In this test, with a mix of all-season and all-weather tires, the all-weather options almost universally delivered better acceleration and braking on the ice. The Dymax All-Weather rose to the top in both metrics, followed closely by the Encompass AW02 and Solus 4S H832. The one all-weather tire that was an exception was the Celsius 2, which comparatively struggled on the ice. The only tire behind the Celsius 2 was the Advantage Control, and it required an additional 18 feet to come to a stop from 12 miles per hour compared to the best in the test.
We test 0 to 12 mile an hour acceleration and 25 to 0 mile an hour braking in the snow, and we measure both in feet, so we report the distance required to accelerate from a stop to 12 and the distance needed to bring the vehicle to rest from 25. This allows us to add both measurements together to come up with a single number that's representative of each tire's straight-line traction in the snow. In straight-line snow testing, the Encompass AW02 led the way by a comfortable margin, delivering the shortest distance for both braking and acceleration. The Solus 4S HA32 was again in the top 3, and the non-three-peak Mountain Snowflake branded Avid Ascend GT also found itself on the podium. The Advantage Control once again needed the most distance for both metrics, totaling 40 feet more than the Nokian.
Straight line traction is one thing, but a tire's ability to turn and its behavior at the limit of grip is something else, and the two don't always have a direct correlation. The top 3 tires in the test for lap times and subjective scores are different than the top 3 in acceleration and braking, with the Weather Grip leading the WeatherFlex GT and Acclimate thanks to its strong, balanced blend of traits. The Celsius 2 was very nice to drive, but its lap times didn't reflect that. And the HTR Enhanced LX2, Endeavor, and particularly the Advantage Control fell to the bottom objectively and subjectively.
Looking at the combined year-round capabilities of the 11 tires in this group, the Encompass AW02 continued to hold on to the top spot. The Weather Grip closed the gap significantly thanks to its disproportionately strong snow traction, and the Avid Ascend GT remained in the 3rd spot on the podium.
Winter performance is the final component to our test, and it's a big one if you experience winter's worst.
So when you combine those results with what we found earlier on the road, in the wet and in the dry, we can complete the full picture of every tire's year-round capability. Plus, we have updated overall ratings for anyone whose year-round driving includes snow and ice.
Looking at all the tires we've tested on the Camry, the Dymax All Weather, Encompass AW02, and Solus 4S HA32 are all among the top performers in acceleration and braking traction on the ice. The rest of this group falls mid-pack or below, and the Celsius 2, Advantage Control, and the Kumo Majesty 9 Solus TA91 from last year's test hold the 3 longest braking distances on the ice.
In the snow, the tires from this test are somewhat evenly distributed in the overall standings, with the Encompass AW02 finishing the highest at 4th from the top, only 8 feet away from the category-leading Cross Climate 2. Notably, the Encompass AW02 had the shortest acceleration by a couple feet, but it required an additional 11 feet to come to a stop compared to the Michelin. The HTR Enhance LX2 and Advantage Control that were at the bottom of this year's test did hold an advantage over 5 tires from last year, with the Majesty 9 Solus TA91 again at the back in snow traction.
When looking at all the touring tires we've put through our full road, wet, dry, and winter testing, only 2 of the tires from this group managed to break into the top 10, with the Nokian and Firestone in positions 8 and 9 respectively. The rest of the group falls further down the list, indicating they struggle to provide the balanced 4-season performance many drivers expect from Grand Touring all-season tires.
So a few of the tires in this test sort of punch above their weight class, and there could be some good value propositions here, depending on what your priorities are, of course. But none of the tires in this test really rose to the top to compete with the best of the best in the category.
We hope you found this test helpful for finding the right touring tires for your vehicle, based on what, where, and how you drive.
If you have any questions or other feedback, leave it in the comments below. We try to read and respond to as many of those as we can. And of course, be sure to like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.